What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers, and break down some other important factors about the markets, what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I break things down, let me just mention that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100, you are guaranteed 7 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon in just about 12 hours from now. So check it out before they run out. Today's the last day to get this offer. Anyways, now let's break down what's happening to the markets. So I just want to mention that right now, things are very, very interesting. The market is showing some weakness. We're going to be watching some very, very key levels on SPY, the QQQ, and the other charts out there. Now, the overall setups are still affecting Tesla. And as you guys can see, Tesla is still very range bound. Tesla likes to get bought up around 172 to 173. A lot of buyers like to defend Tesla. However, around 180 to 182, we do see some sellers stepping in, which does lead to Tesla selling off. We've been stuck within this range for many weeks now. Now, one thing worth noting is that on the shorter term time frames, there is a kind of like a head and shoulders like structure on Tesla. It's kind of resembling that of the overall market. It's kind of resembling like SPY and the others. So we will see if this ends up playing out or not. Regardless of that, I do think that there is a risk of Tesla dipping just a little bit more to retest these lows right here in this like 172 to 173 area. We'll see if that breaks or not. If we do lose that, then it's going to be fine. Even if we do lose 172, we could still try to hold our next support at 168. But I just want to note that there is a risk of some short term downside, but do not be phased. Do not be scared, guys, because here's why. When you zoom out of Tesla, when you zoom out, there's still the bigger inverse head and shoulders that's still developing, and it still gives Tesla potential to bounce, excuse me, to bounce as time goes on, as we approach the next couple of weeks, as we get into June and such. There is still potential for Tesla. Now, could Tesla dip a little bit more? If it does dip, yeah, we could go all the way down to 172. We could even retest 160 and still rebound and continue to consolidate in this range. And we could still get a big breakout later on. So long as there's no major bad news and Tesla does not lose like 160 or so, we're gonna be fine, guys. Tesla still has potential to bounce for the summertime. But for now, like I've been doing in all my videos, when you zoom into Tesla, you guys can see it's been range bound, and there is kind of like a head and shoulders like setup. It does kind of suggest that there's more downside potential for the stock, and it may be heavily dictated by the overall market that could cause that to happen. Why do I say that? Because when you look at SPY, we have a very similar setup. So first thing about SPY is that we had this high at 533, rejected a bit here testing the 50 EMA. We came back up, establishing a lower high, and now we're continuing to fall for a possible rejection. So SPY is showing some weakness right here. When I go into the 30 minutes time frame, what you'll notice is that there's also a head and shoulders setup on SPY. It looks just like this. So basically, we have a left shoulder here, we have a head, and then we have a right shoulder. It all formed over the last 2 days. Uh, if anything, for SPY to be bullish, you want to see it break past 530. You want to continue to hold. To be bearish, you want to see it close below 529. 529 is the level I calculated. We have to close above that to at least have some hope. If we close below that, there's going to be a bigger signal for downside into the 527.5 area. If not, 525 all over again. So there's going to be a risk of a big drop on SPY, excuse me, to the 527s, if not lower. If we end up losing this support and we continue to fall with this head and shoulders, and this is going to have a big effect on stocks like Tesla. You guys can see how it's going to likely affect them. So see how SPY is kind of affecting Tesla with the way we're kind of dipping right now. Same thing with the QQQ. That's the big effect that the overall market has with these algorithms. One thing worth noting about Nvidia, we did pump a little bit more. We went up to about 1150. Then we kind of rejected right over there. And now our next support is going to be right over here, this previous high. This basically 1125 areas, what I'm going to be watching to 1120 for Nvidia as our next support. I'll be watching to see how well Nvidia holds up here. My target for Nvidia was 1140. We actually went a little bit higher than that before getting a rejection. So we could dip a little bit more, get very close to about 1125 or so before we try to bounce again. But overall, Nvidia is still holding up very well. Let me just note that it's still very strong. There's no major sign of weakness. It's still doing a great job. So don't let that phase you, this little dip that's coming. The QQQ also has a head and shoulders like structure. If we end up losing 457, we'll be dipping all the way down to 455. And so far, we're kind of holding this 457 to 458 area. It's kind of like where our support zone happens to be. So we'll see how well the QQQ ends up holding up. I'll be watching that very carefully. To be bullish, you want to see it break past 460, but just be careful. There is a risk of it dipping with SPY. I think that it could be testing 458 right now flat, and maybe even lower levels if we lose that. For Apple's looking a little bit weaker right now. We ended up losing 190.5 a share. We lost that support. Now we're barely at 190. If we lose that, I'll be looking for a move all the way down towards 188, around that 188 area, the previous resistance becoming support. That's where we're going to likely go to. 190 is also previous resistance becoming support right here. Lose that, then 188 is next. And we have resistance currently at 191. So that's what I'm seeing so far. That's going to be very, very important. There is a risk of downside if we lose that support on Aapl. Bitcoin is also dipping a bit. We have this resistance currently around this 68,000 area and 68,300. And we have support currently at 67K. I'll be watching to see how this ends up holding up. So watch 67,500, then 67,000 below that. We'll see how well Bitcoin holds up, but the trend is a little bit more bearish. It's been downtrending. If you guys look at this, a very, very strong downtrend is kind of being established, and that does favor a little bit more downside. It's kind of correlated with the markets right now. And then for a few more, I told you all that the IWM has some downside risk. It might retest 207, then drop. Today it hit 207, then dropped, exactly as predicted. We have a gap to fill down here around 203, so I do anticipate some more downside. AMD is holding up. We did call out a breakout on this. I did call this out in my earlier videos. I also had a target of about 172, and I also said 175 would be our next target if that broke. Well, we ended up going all the way up to about 175. We came just short of that, so we came very close, but still, it's still holding it very well with Nvidia. Could it dip a little bit? It is possible, but it still has lots of relative strength. Amazon is also holding up relatively well, trying to base at 180. Had we lost 180, I'd be watching 178. But we're holding up very nicely. If we continue to hold, I'll be looking for a test of 182.72. So far, it's so good from it. For Meta, we're also holding it very well. There's a possible head and shoulders like structure right here. If we end up losing basically like around 475, I'll be watching 472. Then lower levels such as 468. So watch these levels carefully. There's a head and shoulders like structure, so we'll see what happens moving forward. But be very, very careful. For GameStop, we got a nice little pump here, up 21%. So we'll see what happens, at least with this moving forward. GameStop is still attempting to hold up, but I'm going to be very, very mindful of the fact that I want to see this hold 25 to be bullish. If we continue to lose this, we're going to be dipping back down, in my opinion, for the short term. For the medium term, I'm still kind of bullish. I still think that in June, going to July, there could be a pump coming. Same thing with AMC. Short term, it might dip a little bit, get back down towards 4.8. But for the medium term, I think there could be a very, very nice pump coming this summertime. Anyways, that's it for the video, guys. Please be very, very careful. There is some weakness on SPY and the QQQ. And right now, I'm just going to be very focused on 529. We'll see if this head and shoulders plays out. So far, it has a lot of merit. And if we lose 529 close below it today, that's going to be a bad sign, a sign of weakness on the charts for more potential downside. And if the opposite happens, then it is what it is. We'll just wait and see. But just be careful. And if the market starts dipping lower with the head and shoulders setups, this could also have a big effect on Tesla and lead to a bit more downside. So there is a risk of that. So make sure you guys are prepared and open-minded. And with that being said, this is going to be your very, very quick intraday update. So thank you for listening, guys. Have a very, very awesome rest of the day. I'll be back in a couple of hours, and we'll see how things go. But take care and peace out.